Duryodhana was overjoyed by the outcome and immediately ordered Vidura to bring Draupadi to work as a servant along with the other slaves in the palace. Vidura, however, refused, saying, "I cannot follow the commands of someone who has lost his senses. You are playing with something far more dangerous than you realize. Madness comes first, and destruction follows closely behind. This is the path to ruin." Furious, Duryodhana retorted, "I knew you would show your true loyalties. You're clearly biased toward the Pandavas. I don't need your lectures." Ignoring Vidura, he ordered his charioteer, Pratikami, to fetch Draupadi at once. Pratikami went to the women's quarters and relayed the message to Draupadi. He said, "Princess of Panchala, I have been sent by my lord, Duryodhana, to bring you to him immediately. Yudhisthira has lost you in a game of dice, and now you belong to the Kauravas as a slave." Draupadi was shocked. "What are you saying? No husband has ever gambled away his wife in a dice game. This is absurd. There must be some mistake. My husband, Yudhisthira, had plenty of wealth to wager before he'd even think of me." Pratikami explained that Yudhisthira had already lost all his wealth, his kingdom, his brothers, and even himself before losing Draupadi in the bet. Hearing this, Draupadi posed a legal question. "Go back and ask Yudhisthira this. Did he lose himself first and then wager me, or did he bet me first and then lose himself? Bring me his answer, and only then will I decide what to do." Pratikami returned to Yudhisthira and asked the question, but Yudhisthira, drowning in shame and humiliation, could not respond. Duryodhana, overhearing this, said, "Draupadi's question should be addressed before the entire assembly. Summon her here." Pratikami returned to Draupadi and told her that the assembly wanted her to come and present her case in person. Draupadi, determined to seek justice, followed him but intended to first go where Gandhari and the elders were seated for protection. Seeing this, Duryodhana instructed his brother Dusasana, "Pratikami is scared of Bhima. You go and bring Draupadi here yourself." Dusasana, thrilled by the command, eagerly chased after Draupadi. Before she could reach Gandhari, Dusasana grabbed her by her hair and dragged her into the assembly. Draupadi protested, pleading that she was in her period and wearing only a single cloth. But Dusasana, mocking her, replied cruelly, "I don't care what you're wearing," and continued to drag her before the gathered crowd. When Dusasana forcefully dragged Draupadi by her hair that had been sanctified during the Rajasuya ceremony, she looked like a fragile flag being battered by a violent storm. Trembling and in distress, she appealed to the gathered assembly, questioning whether she had been won fairly. "In the presence of this honorable assembly, Dusasana dares to insult me so openly. How can you all remain silent as he commits this shameful act, disgracing the name of the Bharata family? How can you stand by and watch such injustice in this rigged game of dice played against an innocent man who represents righteousness? Has everyone here lost their sense of justice? How could Yudhisthira wager me when he had already lost his own freedom? This is nothing but a conspiracy." In anguish, she raised her arms and cried out, "Surely there must be someone here who still respects the dignity of women, who honors the mothers who gave them life, who values the honor of their sisters and daughters, and who believes in justice and righteousness. If there is anyone with such principles, I beg you to stand up for me in this moment of horror and humiliation, which is worse than death." The entire assembly remained silent, and Yudhisthira hung his head in shame. Bhima, unable to control his anger any longer, turned to Yudhisthira and said, "Do you even realize the disaster your foolishness has caused? I could forgive you for losing us in the game, but you should never have allowed Draupadi to become part of the wager. Even at the last moment, you should have seen through Sakuni's schemes. A gambler as reckless as you should have their fingers burned." Yudhisthira, accepting his mistake, replied, "I deserve to be punished. Do what you must without delay." Arjuna then spoke to calm Bhima, saying, "Brother, don't let your anger play into the hands of our enemies. They want to divide us. This is a time for restraint, not rage or reckless action. Yudhisthira has been trapped by fate and circumstances. As a Kshatriya, he couldn't refuse a challenge to a game of dice. He was only following royal tradition, and now we must endure this terrible fate." Bhima, though still angry, was calmed by Arjuna's words. Meanwhile, Draupadi stood there, helpless and heartbroken, while even the great elders like Bhishma and Drona remained silent. Finally, Vikarna, one of Duryodhana's younger brothers, stepped forward. Duryodhana stood up and addressed the assembly, saying, Draupadi has raised an important question. I may be young, but the elders, Dhritarashtra, Vidura, Bhishma, and Drona, remain silent when justice is at stake. It is the responsibility of this assembly to address her concerns. I ask for your patience as I speak. First, we must remember that gambling, hunting, drinking, and gluttony are among the worst vices. The actions of anyone addicted to these vices should be considered unjust. Second, Draupadi is the shared wife of the Pandava brothers, and Yudhisthira did not have the legal right to wager her. Third, Yudhisthira was not a free man when he staked her, having already lost his own freedom. Therefore, in my view, Draupadi was not won fairly. Above all, dragging the Princess Draupadi, the daughter-in-law of the Bharata dynasty, is a disgrace to our family's honor and an unforgivable insult to womanhood, culture, and civilization.